Hello, and welcome to The Connection. This podcast is about understanding and building the connection we have with others and with ourselves. I hope that through this podcast you will learn to have more joy and fulfillment in your life. I am your host, Jared Hurst. So, I remember a long time ago when I was 12 years old. My mom was taking me and my brother up to Powder Mountain Ski Resort for our very first skiing lesson. At the beginning of our lesson, they took all of us and lined us up at the bottom of this bunny slope. It was so challenging. We were falling down and having to have people help us get back up because we hadn't learned anything about what we were supposed to do. So the ski instructor quickly showed us how to form an A. What happens is you take your ski tips and you put them together. Then you take the back of your skis and you push them out. And the further out you push the back of your skis, the more stability you have. Because what happens is the edges of your skis dig into the snow and they keep you from being able to slide forward down the mountain. What ended up happening is over the course of a couple days, we practiced falling down and getting back up. We practiced stopping. We practiced turning. We practiced all these different techniques. And I remember they took us over to this tow rope. I hated that stupid tow rope. It was this giant metal cable with these orange handles on it. And what would happen is you'd go over and you'd grab onto this handle, and you had such a hard time grabbing onto this moving object because you're still barely able to stand upright without falling over. Then you grab this thing that's moving and it just about yanks your arms out of your socket, and somehow you're supposed to grab onto this and let it pull you up the mountain. I actually feel it was a lot easier once we finally got to the point where they would let us go up the ski lift to the top. But they wanted to make sure that we had all the fundamentals down before they started letting us go up to the top and do everything that entails. Well, eventually, if you fast forward, me and my brother, we were young boys. We wanted action. We wanted adventure. So we started learning how to go off jumps. And we quickly learned that all of the jumps that we wanted to go off were just slightly on the edge of the trails. They were right next to the trees. So what we would do is we would go into the trees, and then we would come back out and we'd hit this jump and it would have us fly through the air, and we would, we probably went 3 or 4 inches off the ground, but we felt like we were flying. And then we would land. And eventually we would create this whole obstacle course of how we would get down the mountain. We'd figure out where all the best jumps were, and that's what we would do for the rest of the day, is we would just go down the mountain and hit all the jumps and have a lot of fun with it. Eventually, that transformed into me loving to ski in the trees. There is something magical about being in the trees. I don't know if you're not a skier, maybe you can relate to this, but one of my favorite things as a kid is I would wake up at night and I would go to my front door. I'd open the door and it would be snowing outside. It would be dark, but there'd be this little street lamp on the corner, and I'd sit there and watch the snow fall peacefully past this street lamp at night. And that's what it's like being in the trees for me. I'd go into these trees and it was just peaceful and quiet and calm. I loved it. Here's the thing about skiing in the trees. When you're standing at the top of the mountain, you don't sit there and look at all the trees and say, man, look at all these obstacles. How am I going to get to the bottom? You don't sit there and plan every little thing along the way. You don't look at every tree. You don't figure out where the path is that you're going to go through. You simply go to the top and then you look for space. You look wherever the least amount of resistance is, and then you go towards it. And as you're going, as something gets in your way, you react to it. If there's a tree, you go to the right, you go to the left, you go between the trees, you go faster, you go slower, you fall down if you need to. Because you learn all the fundamentals that are going to allow you to safely deal with those trees. But the point is, you don't serve yourself by sitting there and looking at all the obstacles in your way. You serve yourself by going and finding the path. You don't look at the trees, you look at the path in the trees. And that's how life is. Life, getting to our goals, getting to our dreams, is about figuring out where we want to go, figuring out the fundamentals that are going to serve us along the way, learning a few of the pitfalls that might get in the way, and then taking action. Almost any person that you listen to that has done something incredible with their life, somebody that has been uber successful, will tell you to just start. Stop getting an analysis paralysis. Stop trying to figure out everything that you're doing and just go take the action. Go start doing the thing that you're trying to do. Figure out where you want to go and then start going there. A long time ago, in a land far, far away, maybe it was just a couple cities from here, I was trying to learn how to write fictional books. And while I was taking all these classes and going to all these writing conventions and whatnot, there was one concept that people would talk about, and that was, are you a pantser or are you a plotter? If you're a pantser, then that means that you write by the seat of your pants. You kind of have some general idea of what you're doing and you just go start writing. And then the plotters are the people that sit down and they outline every little thing that their book is going to do. And then once they have everything in place, they go do it. And I remember one time there was this guy I was listening to, and he said, the way that I look at outlining is like I'm going on a trip. I know I'm starting here. I'm starting in LA. I know I'm going to New York. I know along the way I want to make a stop at the Grand Canyon. I want to make a stop in Texas. I want to make a stop, they have all these stops along the way, and these are the places that I want to stop on my way to New York. I know where I am, I know where I want to go, and I know a few stops along the way. And outside of that, I just go. And then I let my creativity take me where I want to, allowing myself to go down a wrong road and realize this isn't where I want to go, and then backtrack off that road and then correct my course. I don't know why, but that analogy for writing stuck with me, and I feel like that's how life is supposed to be. We need to know where we want to go. We need to know where we are now, and we need to know a few stops along the way. We need to have some semblance of a strategy of what we want to do to create the life that we want to have. And it doesn't hurt to talk to somebody that's maybe gone on that course before and find out a few of the possible obstacles that are going to possibly be there, things that we should know to make sure that we don't end up getting in a situation where we hurt ourselves. But we spend so much time as individuals because we have fear, and we allow that fear to stop us from action. I was listening to this audiobook lately, and it was about communication, and they were talking about how people don't do well when they feel they've lost a sense of control in a conversation. I just had this realization that so much of what we do as people revolves around a feeling of safety. We want a certain level of certainty so that we know that the path that we're going on is going to get us the results that we want. But the reality is, you need to trust in yourself. You need to trust that you can adapt, that you can change, that you can fall on your face and get up and try something new. It's not permanent. The things that come into your life, the challenges that happen, the failures that you have, it's okay. How often do you sit around just judging the people around you that have failed? How often are you sitting there thinking, man, I can't believe that person tried this thing and failed? Most of the time, we're so hung up on ourselves that we aren't even aware of what's going on with the people around us, let alone having enough time to sit around and critique those people and criticize those people for failure. People aren't sitting around looking at you, judging all your failures. What they do is they see when you accomplish something and they're jealous. They're envious that you were brave enough to put the effort to go out and go after the thing that you desired. Even if you did fail a lot of ways. In fact, I think people are more impressed with people that fail and still find ways to make things happen. There's two guys that I really love that I've heard recently talk about this. I should say I've heard audio from them recently. One of them is no longer with us. His name is Bob Proctor. I love Bob Proctor. And he has this quote where he says, "Stop thinking of why you can't. It doesn't do you any good." That's it. That's all he really says. But it's so true. Stop thinking of why you can't. It doesn't do you any good. The other one I heard is very similar to this. His name's Tom Bilyeu. And he said, "Only do and believe that which moves you towards your goals, even if that thing is true." Only do and believe that which moves you towards your goals, even if something is true. It's not why you can't do something, it's why you can do something. You are sitting at the top of your life, looking down through the trees. And if you sit there and look at every little tree trying to plot out your course to the bottom of the mountain, you're never going to get there. You're never going to get to your destination. If you look at me, before I started going into the trees, I learned the fundamentals. I learned how to stop. I learned how to turn. I learned how to go off jumps. I learned how to fall down properly. I learned all these fundamentals that allowed me to have the ability to go out and go down that mountain between those trees. I remember when I was doing my very first Instagram video, I saw this Instagram quote and it was talking about just taking action. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I ordered a microphone and I ordered a sound guard and all these things. And they kept getting delayed. They kept not arriving when they were supposed to. Finally, I said, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to go out. I'm going to start making my content. I'm going to start doing stuff. And I went out and I made my very first Instagram video, and it was terrible. I think I spent 2 hours trying to record that thing. It sounded awful. I had no clue what I wanted to say, but I did it. And then I went out and I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again. And I got better, and I got better. And the same thing has been true with podcasting. I am so much happier with what I am creating now than what I created when I first started. And that's because I knew where I wanted to go. I knew a few of the issues that I needed to address, and then everything else I figured out as I went. Nobody has heard my very first podcast. My very first podcast, I spent an hour outlining it and figuring out what I wanted to say. And then I went and I recorded it and I listened to it. If I remember right, I said the word I think it was over 70 times in a 20-minute audio clip. 70 in 20 minutes. It was really, really bad. I listened to it. I figured out what I wanted to change. I figured out what I wanted to do differently. I re-outlined it. I went out. I recorded it again. I listened to that one for a couple of days. I figured out what I was doing wrong, and I re-recorded it again. I think after 3 days, 3 recordings. I got it to where my final recording, I said 3 times. I edited those out, and there I was. The last time I did a recording, I did a 20-something minute recording. I had 1 in there. Because I learned. I started taking action. I saw where I was making mistakes. I adjusted. I learned. I developed. I changed. And here I am. And as I go, I find more and more things that I need to fix. And I work on them. And I work on them. And I work on them. I'm trying to be better at telling stories. I'm trying to get better at connecting with my audience. I'm trying to get better at having the energy and the enthusiasm that I want at the times that I want. I'm getting better at those things. And the same thing is true for you. Whatever it is that you want, just figure that out and then go start taking action on it. There's so many people that have failed. You look at somebody like Walt Disney. Walt Disney went bankrupt on his very first motion picture company that he created. And then he almost went bankrupt again when he was releasing his first film, Snow White. And I want to say he had a really hard time making Disneyland. I haven't read all about his story, but he failed multiple times, right? And we talked about this last week. That there's going to be failure and you're going to have challenges and you're going to have adversity. You just go out and you start doing it. The point is take action, adjust your approach, figure out what's working, figure out what's not working, and then go. And just keep adjusting as you go. It's not permanent. Next week, I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I have found over a 15-year period trying to figure out my why and paying for classes and listening to books and all these different things, all the things that I learned on helping myself figure out what was going to light me up inside. I wanted so badly to have a job and have a career that I loved. I heard people all my life talking about how you should have a job that you love. That if you did something that you loved, then you would never work a day for the rest of your life. I don't know if that saying's true or not, but I can tell you that I enjoy my life significantly more the more I integrate certain things and aspects in my life. And so that's what we'll talk about next week. But for now, if you know what you want and you know why you want to get there, just start taking action. Things do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to have everything figured out. There are so many people that have been successful, that have lost all their money, that have had to file bankruptcy, that have had unknown numbers of obstacles come at them along the way. There is no way to plan for everything that can happen in your life. It's impossible. So just prepare, get the fundamentals down, and go make it happen. I believe in you. Until next week, remember that you are not alone.